Inside American Bitcoin, Eric Trump, crypto, and the quiet building of the future. A quiet shift is happening. For most of its life, Bitcoin has lived in extremes. Extreme headlines, extreme predictions, extreme opinions. It was either going to zero or going to the moon. But something interesting is happening now, and it's happening quietly. Bitcoin is no longer just a rebellion against the system. It's becoming part of the system, not through chaos, not through noise, but through infrastructure, long-term thinking, and serious capital. And one of the most unexpected names connected to that transition is Eric Trump. Not as a social media influencer, not as a hype merchant, but as someone involved in building a real Bitcoin company, American Bitcoin, from the ground up. This is not a political story. This is not a price prediction. This is a story about how Bitcoin is growing up and what that means for the future of money, business, and everyday people. Let's begin. Bitcoin's identity crisis. To understand why this story matters, we need to understand where Bitcoin came from. Bitcoin was born out of distrust. Distrust in banks, distrust in governments, distrust in centralized power. For early adopters, that distrust was the point. Bitcoin didn't ask for permission. It didn't rely on institutions. It didn't need approval. And for a long time, that identity worked. But as Bitcoin grew, it ran into a problem. You can't secure a global financial network on ideology alone. You need energy, hardware, data centers, engineers, legal structures, long-term planning. At some point, Bitcoin had to decide what it wanted to be: a permanent outsider or a durable system, from theory to infrastructure. This is where Bitcoin mining becomes important. Mining isn't just about creating new coins. It's about securing the network. Every transaction, every block, every confirmation. Without miners, Bitcoin doesn't exist. And mining today looks nothing like it did in the early years. No more laptops on kitchen tables, no more hobbyist rigs in garages. Modern Bitcoin mining is industrial, precise, and capital intensive. It requires massive energy coordination, advanced cooling systems, specialized hardware, continuous optimization. In other words, it requires real businesses. This is the world American Bitcoin stepped into. Who is Eric Trump, really? Eric Trump is a name most people recognize, but often misunderstand. He didn't grow up in Silicon Valley crypto culture. He didn't come from Wall Street trading desks. His background is real estate, development, and operations, large projects, long timelines, physical assets, infrastructure, and that matters. Because people who build physical businesses think differently. They think in decades, not quarters. They care about reliability, not hype. They understand systems, logistics, and scale. When Eric Trump became involved in the crypto space, it wasn't through meme coins or speculative trading. It was through Bitcoin mining, the most unglamorous but essential part of the ecosystem. Why American Bitcoin took a different path. American Bitcoin didn't position itself as a crypto startup chasing headlines. It positioned itself as digital infrastructure. That distinction is everything. Instead of asking, how do we profit from volatility? They asked, how do we operate sustainably in a volatile world? That meant building data centers in strategic locations, partnering with energy providers, optimizing efficiency instead of speculation, planning for regulatory clarity, not regulatory avoidance. This wasn't rebellion, it was integration. Energy, the most misunderstood part of Bitcoin. Critics often attack Bitcoin for its energy use, but energy use is not the same as energy waste. Bitcoin miners increasingly operate where energy is excess. Energy would otherwise be wasted. Grids need load balancing. In many regions, mining stabilizes power systems instead of stressing them. Mining can absorb surplus energy during low demand, shut down instantly during peak demand, make renewable projects economically viable. American Bitcoin focused heavily on this reality, not slogans, not marketing, just engineering. From controversy to confidence, Bitcoin's biggest challenge has never been technology. It has been trust. Trust from institutions, trust from regulators, trust from the public. Companies like American Bitcoin don't scream, "Trust us." They earn it slowly, by operating transparently, investing long-term, accepting oversight, playing the long game. This is how new industries mature, not by fighting the system forever, but by proving they belong. Why this matters for Bitcoin's future. Bitcoin doesn't need everyone to love it. It just needs builders, operators, risk managers, long-term stewards. When serious infrastructure companies enter the space, something shifts. Bitcoin becomes harder to ban, harder to dismiss, harder to ignore, because it's no longer abstract, it's physical. What this means for everyday people. Here's the part that rarely gets discussed. When Bitcoin matures, everyday people benefit most. Why? Because mature systems are more stable, more predictable, less dependent on hype cycles. You don't need to day trade. You don't need to understand cryptography. You just need options. Bitcoin offers an alternative store of value, a hedge against monetary instability, a system not controlled by any single authority, and infrastructure makes that system stronger. America's role in the Bitcoin era. For years, people feared Bitcoin innovation would leave the US, that America would regulate itself out of relevance. But stories like American Bitcoin tell a different story. They show Bitcoin can exist within legal frameworks. Innovation doesn't require chaos. America can still lead in financial infrastructure. This isn't about domination, it's about participation. The bigger philosophical shift. There's something deeper happening here. Bitcoin is moving from protest to presence, from opposition to permanence. That doesn't mean it loses its original purpose. It means it survives. The strongest systems aren't the loudest. They're the ones that quietly keep working. Why this story is easy to miss. This isn't a viral story. There are no flashy charts, no wild predictions, no overnight riches. And that's exactly why it matters. Because revolutions burn out, but systems endure. The human side of building. Behind every data center are people, engineers, technicians, operators, planners. Bitcoin isn't code floating in the cloud. It's people showing up every day and making it work. American Bitcoin represents that shift from idea to institution. A message for skeptics. You don't have to love Bitcoin. You don't even have to use it. But dismissing it as a fad ignores something important. Bitcoin is being built by people who expect it to still exist decades from now. That alone deserves attention. A message for supporters. If you believe in Bitcoin, this is good news. Because belief alone isn't enough. Infrastructure turns belief into reality. Final thoughts. Bitcoin's future won't be decided on social media. It will be decided in data centers, in energy contracts, in long-term planning rooms. Eric Trump's involvement in American Bitcoin isn't about headlines. It's about something far more boring and far more powerful. Building. The future of money doesn't arrive in explosions. It arrives quietly, one block at a time. If you value calm, thoughtful analysis in a noisy financial world, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the most important changes don't shout, they build. Stay awake, stay aware. This is Felix. See you next time.